from Morrissey Engineering, and she is going to be giving us an overview of some of the work that she's doing with indoor air quality monitoring. So I'll hand it over to Sarah to give a little bit more of her background and show us some of the stuff that she's got up.
Cool. Yeah. And we're going to keep this pretty casual, and I don't have anything formally prepared. And I also understand that this is intended to be somewhat brief because I could talk about this topic for a long, long time. I'm also a mechanical engineer, and so my background is in HVAC and plumbing design, but then I got really into sustainability, as a lot of people do, through the path of energy modeling and like LEED certification and things like that. So I'm in Omaha, Nebraska. Our building now, just the 4940 building, is our headquarters for Morrissey Engineering. And we were just recertified at Platinum again. So we're one of only 8 buildings to be 4-time Platinum certified in the US, which is pretty exciting. And so because of that, I now function as our director of sustainability. And I'm lucky enough to be able to geek out a lot with indoor air quality stuff and other ongoing performance, monitoring and measurement verification things here. But today we're going to talk about IAQ monitors, and I know some of you have interest in this area as well. So if there's specific things you want to talk about, definitely interrupt me, and then I know we'll have time at the end for discussion. So kind of thinking back to 2020, people started to get a little bit more interested in indoor air quality, right, as a response to COVID times and also fires, right? It was all kind of happening at the same time. And at first it was 100% outside air, and then it was like, no, we shouldn't do that. Let's back it up and think about other things too, and like system performance and thermal comfort and energy again. But air quality monitoring was something that I was interested in previously, and specifically continuous IAQ monitoring. And I remember Aware, I have an Aware on my desk here, being at Greenbuild, maybe 17, 18. And at that time, I was like, yeah, this is great. We should do that. So we started monitoring here in the office pre-pandemic, and we had been doing that and using that data for ongoing certifications through ARC and then LEED V4.1 O&M. So 2020 happened. A lot of other people were interested in air quality and continuous air quality monitoring because the wish was you just want something to tell you if it's okay to be in your building again, basically. And that's not really what we're getting out of this continuous IAQ monitoring, but it is, kind of a proxy, right? Mm-hmm. So when we're looking at the kind of 5 parameters that are typically monitored, it's temperature, humidity, carbon dioxide, particulate matter, typically 2.5, and TVOCs. So like those are the 5 things that most monitors do. And then there's some variation between the types and the sizes, but essentially a lot of the sensors are all the same sensors on the inside. And the really big differences are like, how do they connect to the internet? How do you get to the data? Is it like a web app or a phone app, or does it connect with the BAS? How easy is it to set up? So on, battery powered and all that stuff. So I thought, well, since we're designing buildings and we need to be able to talk intelligently about these monitors when people ask questions, like what kind of monitor should I use? I just thought, let's start getting some and trying them out and setting them up and firsthand using them and seeing if we could answer all those questions, like how easy is the setup? Because this is not something that most contractors do or have done before. It's kind of like when you do electrical submetering and things like that. There are these new and different things. And so we've explored even different pathways, like how to get them into buildings, either in new construction applications or existing buildings, like what's most effective, who purchases them, who installs them. And again, there's some nuance there on like monitor to monitor. So I'm going to start sharing my screen here and maybe show some different things. Right now at my desk, I have, let's see how many. I'm just going to share. Yeah, I'll share this. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think 9 different types of monitors right now. Not counting, I guess, if you look back in the in the shared video, I have like boxes of other things here that I just got yesterday, because when I started getting these and setting them up and using them, making videos. I have a YouTube playlist also, which I'll share. Then other manufacturers started getting a hold of me, or people would suggest other sensors and be like, you have to try this one out, or what about this, or how. And I've had the longest relationship with Aware, so you'll notice I have 2 Aware sensors there, because one of them, the lights were dimming on it, and they noticed, and they're like, oh, we better send you a new one. Or we posted about waffles at one point. We had waffles in the office, and so our company LinkedIn posted that we looked at all the particulate matter impacts of the waffles that were being cooked over in the cafe, and the different sensors showed different results, like, which is maybe you should assume, but maybe not. So that was interesting. So we posted about that, and then again, Aware was like, we need to get you a new monitor. So yeah, I've met a ton of people through all of this research, and made a lot of really interesting connections. And all of this is, where do we go? Where do we go from here, right? Because it was like, get all the information. And then I was like, well, it's not good for just me to have this, so I need to get it out there. So I started making the YouTube videos. We started to put together a spreadsheet to compare all of this stuff. So I'll show that here. This is kind of, first of all, and this gets into like the green building standards and what are the requirements for ongoing monitoring from like reset and well, and now LEED. Since I'm the chair of the EQ tag now, we're continuing to talk about the evolution of 4.1 and the future of LEED, and what does that mean in terms of point in time monitoring versus continuous monitoring. So we started to try to track all this stuff, and how do these different standards compare to each other, and then how do the different sensors compare to each other. And this is not actually available for public consumption yet, so this is like a little preview, but I've been in touch with all these different manufacturers trying to get this data and have this resource for people to use and compare, which I think will be really good and exciting.
This is really cool. Really interesting.
Thank you. And then 2, I don't know if I just switch my Excel sheet here. Let me share another one. The other question is always like, what is good? Like, what's the limit? And when we're talking about continuous monitoring, it's different than point in time monitoring. But previously, like LEED for a long time, and then other standards that exist out in the world, there are these limits. And when we're talking about limits, the question is always like, well, what is maybe dangerous versus what is ideal? And there's a lot of area in between those 2 things. So as part of the Building Green peer networks, I'm also in this indoor air quality working group, where we get together and we talk about all this stuff, and like, what does that mean for us in buildings versus like EH&S type stuff and industrial hygiene. And there's a lot of interesting crossovers now. I started listening to the IAQ radio podcast. If you haven't gotten into that, there's a lot of episodes, and it's more focused on a little bit like residential and like industrial hygiene type stuff, but it's really, really interesting. And there's things on there that I don't even understand, but I'm looking forward to getting into. So there's a lot going on here. And as part of this working group, we did come out with a white paper. I'm going to stop sharing here, share a different thing. I can share all these links too if I didn't previously share them, but this Building Green white paper is called Considerations for Continuous Air Quality Monitoring. And it just came out this year, I think. Yeah, 2022. So this gets into like, what do we know now? And again, the goal of this was to take all this kind of collective information and get it out into the world. So it talks about continuous monitoring and rating systems now. How do you choose a monitoring system? Where, how do you place them? How many like monitors per square foot? Things like that. Integration with BAS, and like what do you do with the data, which is kind of this part 2 that we're trying to get to. So this paper will actually be presented at Greenbuild this year. It's going to be a 3-part presentation, and I have that session description pulled up as well. Let me find that. Green build agenda. So it's going to be, I assume it's going to be recorded. I don't really know yet. It's going to be Wednesday, the 2nd in the afternoon. And it's got a cute name. You know how we have to have cute names for presentations. The ABCs of IAQ monitoring, when, why, and how. So it's myself and John Millade and Shona O'Day, and we're going to each take a part of this presentation. I'm going to talk about all of the monitors and like, what do we see in terms of the data trends? Do they, are they similar or not? Why are we not? What the kind of the impacts of long-term monitoring and the comparison of all the different monitors. And then John's going to present the white paper and talk through all that, not in this order. And then Shona's going to talk, I guess DLR has 5,000 devices across 4 continents. They've been kind of doing this project for this big client at scale. So that's going to be the focus of Shona as part of the presentation, but I'm really excited about that. There's a ton of other stuff here. I have all these different dashboards pulled up, and like I said, I could continue to talk about this for far too long. And here's my YouTube playlist as well. So I'll share this as well. And then on here, I guess final thought there. I have a couple links in here also, like here's the background on maybe just indoor air quality and thermal comfort. Here's the white paper. Here's the reset stuff. Here's well and lead and so on. Yeah, so that's a quick primer on all the things I'm working on here with IAQ.
So if you had a client that was interested in deploying some type of IAQ monitoring in say like their office space, what would be like the major like considerations? What would be the questions you would ask them to kind of hook them up with the right scale and type of system?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I guess the question is new or existing building. That's kind of number one. And then it's what are the connection options? Like, are there security issues with data? Does it need to be, can it be Wi-Fi or cellular? Or do you have like, PoE options or things like that? Because different monitors have different options there. And then it gets into if it is new construction, you again have different power options, like if it's plug and cord or if it's PoE or if it's direct wire. And then where are you going to put them? Like, how many do you need? What type of building is it? What's the density of monitors? And also how they look, right? Because there's a wide array of like what these things look like. Like, I think the Aware is nice, but then there's different power consumption issues too. So, and then here's Airthings. A lot of them, most of them are white. There's a couple like the Atmo Cube back there, which I showed in the picture. You can kind of customize it or look a little different. But, and then I think finally, like the capability or expectation of being able for people in the building to get to the data easily. Like, do you want it to be transparent or not? And then if there is some kind of building rating system requirement involved, like if it's pursuing well and you're going for that optimization, then it has to be able to do certain things or, be within a certain range of performance. So yeah, those are like the main things I guess I would think of off the top of my head.
And
yeah.
like, how are companies, I mean, if I was an owner and I was going to deploy this to maybe meet the well certification or something requirement, do you see companies making the data transparent to their employees, and like what metrics are they most interested in? And are they interested in what's the CO2 level in the conference room? Are they interested in waffles? Like,
yeah, people love waffles. I think it's really widely variable. I spoke on a panel earlier this year or late last year that was IAQ monitoring, like basically to measure or not. And I guess I bring that up because there's a whole range of like, yeah, we want people to see all the data and let's put a QR code next to the monitors. Like, I have a project that we have Aware IAQ monitors. We have a QR code which takes them to the live link and they can just look at the data and get some more information that way. And then there's people on the far other side that are like, I do not want monitors because what if it's bad? I don't want to know about it, which I don't get, but that's definitely a thing. And then there's in the middle of like this might be a good idea, but the other big question, which I didn't bring up, is who's going to look at the data, right? Like that's a big question, and that might influence what type of monitor you end up with too, because some are more user friendly than others in terms of looking at the data. So most of them have, and there's a little bit of variance on this too. Most of them will give you like a score, like an aggregate score. So if you look at the aware here, it's 96, which you can read, which I learned when we did the plant thing earlier, right?
Uh-huh.
But they give you a 0 to 100 sometimes, like a number score, like Energy Star, right? To say, is it good or not? And some of them have like little color codings that, the aware one has these different LEDs that'll light up, like if it's good or bad. If they're bad, there's more of them. If it's good, there's less. Because like I said before, people are just like, is it good or not? There's not a ton of situations I feel like where people want to get into the what is the exact CO2 level
Mm.
to a point that we do, but yeah.
No, I get that. Kind of like when you open your iPhone and it has the air quality index for the day, right? It just says, is it good? Is it not so good? Is it
Yeah.
bad? You know.
And maybe some people want to get more into it or not. But I think we did some monitoring in schools, as again, like post-pandemic. And I just saw like all of the Denver schools just signed a contract, I think, with SenseWare. So they're going to have IQ monitors in all these schools, and a lot of other school districts have done that. And they actually have staff that can look at the data. And I think it's important to know who's going to look at the data and what they kind of their experience or knowledge level is with it. So what can they do with that information? So they see, TVOC is spiking, but then it drops off. It's like, oh, well, that's good. Like something happened, the ventilation's working, it cleared it out. It's not like people are going to freak out about it or the sky isn't falling, but it's like, oh, particulate matter is constantly high in this area. Let's go look at it. And the thing that I think is important to remember with continuous monitors is these aren't like absolute values, right? The sensors they're fallible. So what we're looking for mostly is trends, like trends up and down. And so then you have to look at the data with some level of frequency to be able to react when you see stuff. Because if you wait a week or a month and then you go back and you're like, what was that? I don't know. Like you're not really able to take action from it.
Definitely.
Sarah, have you experienced any kind of fear from clients who are like, well, if we start monitoring this and 20 years down the road, we realize that VOCs are doing this, and all of a sudden we have $1 billion lawsuit because we ran 10,000 kids through the Denver schools through this period. So how's that kind of been? What's kind of been that reception? What's been your kind of response to some of that?
Yeah, I mean, my personal view is like it's better to know. It seems less negligent to know and try. Like maybe you're limited and you can't do anything about it because you don't have mechanical ventilation in the school or something like that. But
yeah,
at least you know that there may or may not be an issue and you can try with the best possible information you have now. I mean, obviously I'm not a lawyer, but that seems better, like right from a legal perspective, than just like we're afraid it might be bad, so let's not even try.
Yeah.
And then it comes out later. Like that seems more negligent to me. But I mean, it's like I said, it's widely varying in terms of what people will do because I've definitely heard school districts come to that opposite conclusion of like, we don't feel like we can really wrap our hands around this or do anything. So it's just like, why invest the time and money, right? In finding out things you can't do anything to fix, which I kind of get that.
Right. Right.
Right. What kind of like building and operations, like I guess level of expertise would be needed, say in a school situation for someone who works for the school district to take action?
Yeah, I think it's not like an ideal situation in my mind to say, like using school districts or office buildings, as like most office buildings, you maybe have facility management, but let's say a school district, it's not feasible to say, put in all these IAQ monitors and then hire somebody like me to look at the data like for forever. That's just that doesn't make sense. What I feel like has worked well is kind of like what I like to do with benchmarking and portfolio manager, where get it all set up. Like maybe you need a design professional or somebody to get it going and help you, and then train or educate somebody else to a point that you can hand it off to them. And I've done that with all kinds of different people. It just takes like the interested person. It's kind of, because a lot of this is, there's phone apps, there's web browsers, it's accessible. It's just like there has to be a little bit of a primer on like, what is air quality? What is thermal comfort? How do these things relate with the system that you have in place? Because then, we did a series of, I worked on with the Center for Green Schools. We worked on a series of, I don't know, like advice guides, or I can't remember what they called them, right? You remember those?
Yes.
And it was like, what do you do or what can you do? And it's so variable depending on what system is happening behind the scenes, right? Like, is it rooftop units? Is it window air conditioners? Is it something else? Like, so yeah, I think I always feel like an interested party is a good place to start.
Do you see people doing any type of like ASHRAE 55 tracking on it? Like saying how far, like if we assign this net value and this clo value to this office space, do you see anyone trying to track, like, are we within the ASHRAE 55 parameters given at a given relative humidity and temperature?
Yeah. You mean like companies or these monitor companies doing that? Kind of yes, kind of no. I mean, I think some of that factors into like the score, right. But like Aware as an example, they just do it based on the absolute range, right? So they're like, oh, humidity is 70. That's bad. But I don't think they're looking at it, and this is more of a software question, right, on how their software interacts. But like, I don't think they're looking at it as a total combined value. They're just like, temperature is normally this, humidity is normally that. Is it good or bad?
Okay, so like if you were in, say, like Denver and it's really, really dry, you're never going to hit like a 50% RH value indoors, typically, unless there's a bunch of people in a conference room. So like, so it's really saying, okay, so our baseline is like 25% RH, or something, and it's kind of tracking to that.
I don't know if they do that, honestly. Like, it would be nice. Yeah, I think they say like 50 is good. And if you're too much lower or too much higher, then that's bad. Like here in the winter, right, in Omaha, it gets super dry, just, and it's like, yeah, the little lights will light up and it's be like, oh, it's too dry in here. I'm like, yeah, well, I can't do anything about that. Yeah. So even, I mean, yeah, going back to humidity, like and you guys all know, like there's a lot of education that goes into some of this too. Like you can't just put this stuff in places and expect people to get it. And other, like AirThings does even like a viral risk index. So in addition to like the score, the 0 to 100 or whatever the numbers are, the, green, red, yellow, they also have I think it's like viral risk assessment score. So they'll look at, and I have a YouTube video on this too, but they'll look at, temperature, humidity, CO2, and use those as proxies for like how likely is it that viruses could propagate in the space if the particulates are higher, if the ventilation is lower, if the humidity is within a certain range or not. And this is all software stuff, right, that happens on the other side. So that's what's really interesting, I think, about the variability between these. Like, what are they doing on the software side, and what do you want to kind of get out of it? And some will interact with, the BAS. I think the future is like more projects doing 62.1 IAQP instead of VRP, right? And interfacing with these sensors and doing continuous monitoring and like controlling the system based on the feedback and that. But right now it's very much like, this is a separate thing. And I've had to say this to people too, so they don't freak out. I'm like, it's not controlling anything. It's fine. It's just on its own.
Just monitoring.
We're just monitoring. And so, yeah. But I do think like it feels like that's more of where design's going to go in the future.
We are at time. So thank you very much. This has been great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Really interesting. So
Sarah,
Mark, PJ,
question.
yeah, go for it.
If you bought one for your home, what room are you most apt to put it in? Your kitchen, dining, or living would be my main guesses. But
kitchen, dining, or living. Well, I have 3 in my house. Currently, I have 3, and they're all in the bedrooms.
Oh,
so I have 2 kids, and so one's in, because I feel like And I've had them in the kitchen, and I have coworkers that have had them in the kitchen before, which is always interesting. You know, I'll get texts from them like, "Oh, my wife's cleaning out the oven, and you know the TVOCs are going crazy, and she didn't open the windows." But yeah, kitchen monitoring. If you wanted to, you could monitor your CO and your NO2 in the kitchen. Like if you have a gas range, that's really terrifying. But I think bedrooms is like, in terms of time spent at home, that's where you spend the most time. So
Cool. We still have the gas range, but we're getting rid of it.
I know.
Our
Me
heat
too.
pump comes in 2 weeks.
Oh, exciting.
But cool.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you guys. PJ, did you have any questions at all?
No questions for me. Thanks so much, Sarah. Really informative.
Yeah. You're welcome.
All right. Have a great day, everybody.
Okay, bye. Yes, take care.
Bye.
Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah.